Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah, Nabiyyana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to 30 du'as that changed the world. In this episode, we are going to be looking at the du'a of Zakaria alayhi salam for a child. Now, most of us parents who are struggling with our children are pulling our hair out, but only those husbands and wives who've been seeking a child for a long time can understand the yearning when you want a child, when you're trying for a child, but you don't have a child. Zakaria alayhi salam in the Quran is described as reaching old age. And he's not just any parent, but he's a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't just want a child to continue his family name, but he wants a child to continue the legacy of prophethood. He reaches old age and his wife is barren. They reach senior years, but they're unable to have children. And just to give you some background to who Zakaria alayhi salam was, to understand Zakaria alayhi salam and his story, you have to understand Maryam alayhi salam's story. And to understand Maryam, you need to know who Imran was. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned certain families that were given a great status in Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Ali Imran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اصْطَفَى آدَمَ وَنُوحًا وَآلَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ وَآلَ عِمْرَانَ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. Allah certainly chose Adam and Noah, and He chose the family of Ibrahim alayhi salam and the family of Imran above the rest of mankind. So who exactly was Imran? Imran was one of the righteous servants and worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was one of the leaders of Bani Israel. He was actually a descendant of the Prophet Dawood alayhi salam. Bani Israel at this point, they are centered around the temple of Sulaiman alayhi salam, and Imran is the most senior religious person there. Now Imran had a wife who had longed for a child herself, and she is the one who is described in Surah Ali Imran as invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and dedicating the child that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives her to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the temple of Sulaiman alayhi salam. Naturally, she had assumed that that child would be a boy, and lo and behold, her surprise when she gives birth to a girl, Maryam alayhi salam. Now all those who stayed in the temple of Sulaiman and devoted themselves to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were men. So now Maryam, if she was going to go into the temple of Sulaiman, as her mother had taken a vow, she would need a man as a guardian. The natural choice was Zakaria alayhi salam. Now Imran's wife's sister, a lady who some reports describe her name as Isha, she was married to Zakaria alayhi salam. So Zakaria becomes the maternal uncle of Maryam alayhi salam. But all the other rabbis in the temple wanted that honor to look after Maryam. You see, before she was even born, tragically her father Imran had passed away. So now if she was going to devote herself to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the temple of Sulaiman, she would need a guardian. Her father has passed away. So the rabbis cast lots, a type of random way of selecting somebody who could look after her, a more fairer way than they considered. Now each time they cast lots, the winner was, of course, Zakaria alayhi salam. And naturally, he was her uncle, so it made more sense that he would be her guardian. He, alayhi salam, was also a carpenter. So he built a mihrab, a special place of prayer for Maryam alayhi salam in the temple of Sulaiman. And she grew up under the careful guidance of the Prophet Zakaria alayhi salam, subhanallah. She had such status and honor as the daughter of Imran and as the niece of Zakaria alayhi salam, that she was left alone in her private chambers in the mihrab to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and devote herself to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is at this point when Zakaria as her guardian comes in to give food and sustenance to Maryam that he notices fruits of all kind. And what's more important, he notices them out of season. Now he knows nobody else has access to the mihrab of Maryam. He's the only guardian, he's the uncle. He's the only one who can bring her stuff. So where did she get this from? And what's more, summer fruits he can see in wintertime, and winter fruits he can see in summertime. Where did she get this from? And Maryam confidently answers that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a miraculous rizq, provision from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. While she is engaged in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, devoted to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is providing for her. Allah is providing for her. That's the key and significant part of that story. So when Zakaria sees this miracle, he instantly is inspired to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran describes this in Surah Ali Imran verse 38. هُنَالِكَ دَعَا زَكَرِيَّا رَبَّهُ قَالَ رَبِّ هَبْ لِي مِن لَّدُنْكَ ذُرِّيَّةً طَيِّبَةً إِنَّكَ سَمِيعُ الدُّعَاء. The rough translation of this, my Lord, grant me from you a good offspring. Indeed, you are the hearer of supplications. Subhanallah. He is so inspired by his niece and inspired by the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can provide without means, that he is instantly filled with hope. Hope that despite his old age, despite his grey hair, despite the fact that his wife is barren, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can still provide for him a son. And also, he cleverly wants to take advantage of the place that he's in. Hunalik, there and then he makes dua. Why? Because this is a place which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has visited with miracles. Allah has sent miracles there. So it's a blessed place. It's a place where perhaps Zakariya's dua can be answered. And there and then he invokes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This dua is so important, it's actually mentioned in two other verses of the Quran. It was revealed in the early Meccan period, in the late Meccan period, and also the Madani period. So it's a story which has significance across the Quran and across the Seerah. You can find the dua in Surah Maryam and so also Surah Al-Anbiya. Now, why does Zakaria alayhi salam ask for a child? It may be an obvious question, but it's something which needs some reflection. We find the answer in other verses of the Quran where Zakaria is described as giving the reason why he is invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a child. يَرِثُنِي وَيَرِثُ مِنْ آلِ يَعْقُوبَ وَجَعَلْهُ رَبِّي رَضِيًّا. He will inherit me and inherit from the family of Yaqub and make him my Lord pleasing to you. Subhanallah. Now Zakaria alayhi salam doesn't just want a child because he has these paternal instincts. He doesn't just want a child for a material reason to carry on his estate and look after his house and his business. No. Zakaria alayhi salam wants a child to continue the legacy of prophethood. He knows that after he dies, he needs somebody to continue calling people to Tawheed, continue leading Bani Israel, continue joining the good, forbidding the evil, and preserving the message of Islam. By that time, Bani Israel had become quite corrupted. The temple of Sulaiman had become a place of business, a place of exploitation, and he knows his legacy must continue. هُنَالِكَ دَعَا زَكَرِيَّا رَبَّهُ. Right there and then he invokes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a child. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him a child. A miracle. He gives him a young son called Yahya. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself chooses the name of the young boy Yahya. Yahya in English today is a common name, John. And subhanallah, we find that this young boy Yahya also grows up to become a prophet. More importantly, he becomes the contemporary of Isa alayhi salam. They run parallel ministries, supporting each other, giving dawah to the people of Bani Israel, and spearheading the movement of reform. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, in a very famous hadith spoke about a dialogue between Yahya and Isa alayhi salam, where they spelt out the 5 pillars of their faith, which is very, very similar to the 5 pillars of Islam. Now, there are some things which we can learn from this dua, which are lessons for life for us. First of all, you can take inspiration from anywhere. Zakaria is a prophet of Allah. He is actually an elderly man full of wisdom and knowledge. But he takes inspiration from the very young girl Maryam alayhi salam, subhanallah. He's not full of arrogance. He's not saying, well, what does she know anyway? But he is amazed by her piety, and he is amazed by the miracles which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows to him, and that inspires him. We can take inspiration from any walk of life, from any situation, from any small sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also describes to us how Zakaria made dua. إِذْ نَادَى رَبَّهُ نِدَاءً خَفِيًّا, when he called to his Lord with a private, humble supplication. When we make dua, it's not correct to be loud and ostentatious. That dua should be secretive between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a lowered voice. Why? Because only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can hear your dua. You're not interested in anybody else listening to your dua, because only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the power to respond. As a point of reflection, think about this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-hearing. You are secretly making a dua to Him, yet He can hear you. If all the people in the world were to get together and secretly make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He could hear them all and He could respond to them all, subhanallah. This is one of the reasons why it is prohibited to make dua to anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Regardless of whether you believe that person you're making dua to, it could be a saint which has passed away, it could be a prophet which has passed away, it could be a righteous person who has passed away. If you start to pray to them, as in invoke them, you are giving them divine attributes, and that is totally prohibited in Islam. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can hear the secret calls and du'as. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can respond to them. So regardless of whether you believe those saints, those righteous people, those people who have passed away, whether you believe they are actually the ones responding to your dua, or whether you believe they are intermediaries taking your dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of that is prohibited, and all of that can take you outside the fold of Islam. It's very serious. Your dua should be secretive and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. The Prophet ﷺ's companions once came to him and asked him, when we make dua, should we raise our voices or should we make the dua secret? And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, to him was revealed the verse in Surah Al-Baqarah, a very famous verse. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. And when my servants ask you concerning me, indeed I am near. I respond to the invocation of the supplicant when he calls upon me. So let them believe in me and let them follow my guidance so they may be rightly guided. Subhanallah, in this verse of the Quran, it is the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ who is asked the question. But look at the Arabic grammar and you'll see the answer comes directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to every human being. There is no qul, to emphasize that the relationship between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to dua is exclusive and direct. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.